On September 7th, 2025, Guyana's President Irfaan Ali took the oath of office for his second term. As he promised free college tuition, improved welfare and better infrastructure, 2 American Harrier jets thundered above Georgetown in a dramatic flyover. It was more than ceremony. It was a message. The United States is here, backing Guyana's sovereignty and its booming oil industry. But across the Atlantic, China is also vying for influence, financing bridges, hospitals and airports. The battle lines are drawn, not on Guyanese soil, but in its future. So who really controls Guyana's destiny? Is it Washington, with its security guarantees and ExxonMobil dominance, or Beijing, with its construction crews and deep pockets? The answer is complicated, and the stakes are global. Guyana is suddenly the center of gravity in South America. Once one of the hemisphere's poorest nations, it has become the world's fastest-growing economy on the back of gigantic offshore oil finds. Between 2019 and 2025, production has skyrocketed from 0 to more than 620,000 barrels per day, with forecasts pointing to 1.3 million barrels daily by 2027. This tiny country of just 800,000 people now rivals OPEC producers. For the US, Guyana is a strategic partner in its backyard, crucial for energy security and a bulwark against Venezuela. For China, Guyana is another piece in its Belt and Road puzzle, a place to extend trade, infrastructure projects and diplomatic sway. Both powers are invested, but neither has uncontested control. At the heart of this rivalry lies the Stabroek Block, offshore territory that holds billions of barrels of recoverable crude. It's operated by a joint venture, ExxonMobil of USA, 45%, Chevron via Hess, 30%, CNOOC of China, 25%. This structure explains everything. The US companies are the dominant operators, with Exxon as the lead developer. But China, through its state-owned CNOOC, controls a quarter of every decision, every barrel, and every dollar that flows from Stabroek. The arrangement makes Guyana unique. Unlike most oil plays where one country dominates, Guyana's oil boom is essentially a joint project between Washington and Beijing, unfolding in the same waters. The rivalry took an unexpected turn in 2024 and 2025, not between countries, but between American oil giants. Chevron announced a $53 billion acquisition of Hess, which owned a 30% stake in Guyana. Exxon quickly tried to block it, claiming preemption rights to buy Hess's stake itself. Guess who stepped in? China's CNOOC. It sided with Exxon, arguing that it too should have a say. The dispute went to international arbitration, and in mid-2025, Chevron won. The ruling allowed Chevron to finalize the Hess deal, cementing its role as Exxon's partner in Guyana. The episode highlighted a reality. China doesn't control Guyana's oil, but it can shape outcomes. Its 25% stake gave it a voice that even American supermajors had to reckon with. While corporate boardrooms decide equity stakes, the Pentagon is securing oil rigs and shipping lanes. The US has dramatically deepened defense ties with Guyana, joint exercises with the Guyana Defense Force, high-level visits from US Southern Command officials, training programs and equipment assistance, and the most symbolic gesture, the Harrier jet flyover at Ali's swearing-in, was Washington's way of saying, "We have your back." The timing was not random. Venezuela has renewed its claims over Essequibo, the disputed territory that covers 2/3 of Guyana's land. Caracas has even staged elections in the contested zone. For Washington, keeping Venezuela, and by extension its ally Russia, at bay is part of the larger chessboard. But while the US provides military muscle, China builds physical infrastructure. Over the past decade, Chinese companies have financed and built the Chedijagan International Airport expansion, roads, hospitals and housing projects, the planned Demerara River Bridge, a massive upgrade for Guyana's transport network. China's influence is visible not on parade grounds, but in daily life. It provides the concrete, steel and credit lines that Guyana desperately needs as it modernizes. And when the US ambassador in Georgetown recently suggested that American firms deserve preferential treatment, Beijing fired back, warning against what it called economic discrimination. In other words, the US may fly jets, but China is laying bricks. So far, the picture is clear. The US dominates the oil and security space, while China expands its grip on infrastructure and trade. Guyana sits at the intersection, benefiting from both, but also risking overdependence on external powers. If oil is the engine of Guyana's transformation, trade is the steering wheel. And here the numbers tell a revealing story. The United States is Guyana's biggest trading partner, especially on the export side. Almost all of Guyana's crude is shipped to US refineries, making Washington its most important customer. In 2024, Guyana earned billions in oil sales, with America buying the lion's share. But on the import side, the picture is more competitive. Guyana imports machinery, electronics, and manufactured goods primarily from the United States and Trinidad and Tobago. China ranks third, but growing. Chinese exports to Guyana nearly doubled in the past 5 years, reaching close to $1 billion annually. So while the US dominates as a buyer of oil, China is racing ahead as a supplier of the goods and services Guyana needs to run its economy. In the long run, that creates a dependency that is less visible but equally powerful. Diplomatically, Guyana is walking a tightrope. On one hand, President Irfaan Ali has leaned heavily into US security support, particularly with Venezuelan tensions escalating. The Harrier jet flyover was a clear sign that Georgetown trusts Washington when it comes to defense. But on the other hand, Guyana cannot afford to alienate Beijing. In 2021, it learned this the hard way when it briefly considered opening a Taiwan trade office in Georgetown. Within days after pressure from China, the plan was scrapped. Ali's government reaffirmed its commitment to the One China policy, underscoring just how sensitive Beijing is to any political gestures. For Guyana, the strategy is clear: embrace both powers without angering either. It wants US protection, Chinese financing, and to keep its own sovereignty intact. The question is whether such a balance is sustainable. Guyana's government revenues are soaring. In 2025 alone, oil income is expected to top $2.5 billion, a staggering figure for a country of fewer than 1 million people. The government has pledged to use these funds for social programs, free college education, higher pensions, lower electricity bills, and massive infrastructure upgrades. But the dependence is risky. In January 2025, production slipped to about 620,000 barrels per day, below expectations. Even small technical hiccups offshore can dent national revenues. It's a reminder that while Guyana is oil-rich, it is also oil-dependent. The IMF has praised Guyana's prudent fiscal management, but analysts warn of the classic resource curse: corruption, inequality, and an overheated economy. Both the US and China are watching closely, because whoever helps Guyana spend this money wisely will earn long-term influence. The biggest wildcard in Guyana's future is not Exxon or CNOOC, it's Venezuela. Caracas continues to claim the Essequibo region, which covers more than 2/3 of Guyana's territory. In recent years, Venezuelan patrol vessels have entered contested waters, raising fears of a clash. Earlier this year, Venezuela even staged elections in Essequibo, angering Georgetown and prompting a military alert. For the United States, this is a red line. Washington's military cooperation with Guyana is not just about goodwill. It's about preventing a crisis that could jeopardize billions of barrels of oil, regional stability, and shipping routes. China's position is more cautious. While Beijing has deep ties with Caracas, it also has a 25% stake in Guyana's oil. For now, it has tried to avoid taking sides. But if the dispute escalates, Beijing may be forced to choose, a choice that could redefine the balance of power in Guyana. So who really controls Guyana's future? The answer is that control is fragmented. The oil barrels are dominated by American firms ExxonMobil and Chevron, but China's CNOOC holds a quarter stake, ensuring a permanent seat at the table. Security and sovereignty lean heavily on Washington, from Harrier jets to Southern Command exercises. Infrastructure and daily life are stamped with Chinese financing and construction, from airports to bridges. Guyana is in the rare position of having both superpowers entangled in its rise. That gives Georgetown leverage for now, but it also means that a crisis, whether from falling oil prices, mismanagement, or a Venezuelan incursion, could tip the balance toward one power. In other words, no one fully controls Guyana today, but both the United States and China are investing heavily to ensure that when the decisive moment comes, they will. Guyana's story is no longer about what it lacks. It's about what it has and who wants it. Oil has transformed this nation from poverty to power, but it has also turned it into a stage for global rivalry. For Washington, Guyana is the next great energy ally in the Americas. For Beijing, it is another link in its global network of influence. And for Guyana itself, the challenge is to convert newfound wealth into lasting prosperity without becoming a pawn in someone else's game. The future is still unwritten, but one thing is certain: the battle for Guyana is only just beginning.